Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
News tonight with the fallout from these new details pouring in from today's explosive impeachment testimony from former Trump diplomat Bill Taylor, laying out these new details of an incriminating quid pro quo plot between the Trump administration and Ukraine. We've been going through the details, and here's another that we haven't aired yet. Taylor recounting how that now famous Trump loyalist, Gordon Sondland, was trying to defend the premise of this transactional foreign policy, saying that because Trump is a businessman, when he's about to sign a check to someone who owes him something, he asks that person to pay up before signing the check. I want to get into this with two prosecutors who are real experts on these kind of cases. David Kelly is a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, often in the news, and Barrett Berger is a former federal prosecutor serving in that office as well as the Eastern District. Good day to both of you.
Hello.
How are you?
David, also, as I always mention, is a former boss of mine, and if we were in the U.S. Attorney's office, you would be more senior in rank. We'll start with you, although I prize both of your analysis. What kind of evidence did we hear today?
Well, you heard a lot of damning evidence, both for the president and those folks around him. The question is, from a criminal perspective, what does that do? Is this really a criminal issue, or is it really an issue for, constitutional issue of impeachment? So you really have a misappropriation of money that's appropriated by Congress. And if this wasn't the president who was directing it, I would think that you have, from a criminal perspective, you have federal election law violations, and you might even have violations of making bribes to foreign officials.
So you just listed
FCPA violation.
Well, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Right. So you just listed off, as a prosecutor might, several felonies that could have been committed that you'd at least want to investigate.
Sure.
What does it tell you that under Bill Barr, the Justice Department's immediate public response to this was that there was nothing to investigate?
It sounds to me, and not really having all the facts, but on a glance, it certainly was enough in the whistleblower complaint to dig deeper than they apparently did. So I don't know if it was sloppiness or intentionality that they didn't pursue it further.
Spoken like a very careful attorney. He doesn't know if it was sloppiness or intentional, but he's saying, and I wonder if you could build on the point, that we keep learning more information that suggests, at a minimum, there was an effort at extorting a bribe. And to the extent that foreign officials were involved, it may be also other laws. Your view?
Yeah, I mean, Taylor's testimony today, I think there's no way that Congress can't find this significant. The quote that you just put up, where he was, describing how Sondland was saying, the businessman writing the check. I mean, if we were in front of a jury and we're trying to explain the concept of a quid pro quo, that may be the very example I would use, right? Of a businessman wanting to, get the payout before he signs the check. I think Taylor really went.
And let's pause on that, and then you go.
Yeah.
The businessman writing the check is spending his money in a transaction. Here, the allegation is that the president is stealing money that's not his. It's U.S. taxpayer appropriated funds to get a personal benefit.
Right. I mean, the conduct is clearly worse than what is set out in that hypothetical. But just to exemplify that, for an administration that has really gone to great lengths to say there was no quid pro right from the get-go, this was a pretty startling description of exactly that.
Yeah, and some of this news has come at us so fast today that we don't have it all ready when we produce it up. So I have something here I want to read that I know we don't have yet, but it is also from Taylor's testimony because we're getting it as we go. He describes the first time that he heard from government officials, quote, that the money, the security assistance, was, quote, conditioned on the investigations that Trump wanted. Oh, we do have it now. Great. Let me read the whole thing. This was the first time I'd heard the security assistance, not just the White House meeting with Zelensky, was conditioned on the investigations Trump wanted. Is that good or bad?
Well, from a criminal perspective, it's really bad because it's the quid pro quo. It's just conveying a thing of value. From a constitutional perspective, it shows an abuse of power, which is the very thing that's contemplated in the impeachment provision of the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. One thing that really struck me with the reporting from Taylor's testimony today was how important it seemed to be that the Ukrainian president made these announcements publicly. That really speaks to me to this idea of, how you say this was a thing of value. It wasn't necessarily even that the investigation was going to be conducted by the Ukraine or that they were looking into it. It seemed that the import was that this proclamation was made publicly so that it was to get sort of the full bang for the buck so that it could clearly be used as an advantage in running a political campaign.
Right, and you're suggesting that Donald Trump, whose rise to power and whose troubles have come in part from his obsession with the use and abuse of publicity, was keenly, according to this allegation, was keenly interested in getting it out public and boxing in that they would do this Biden probe and say they'd do it so it would ensnare Biden before even the primaries were over.
That's one fact I think that, for example, like a prosecutor could use if you were trying to show that what they were after was something of value that could be used in the context of an election. Making it very clear that this needed to be a public proclamation that they were going to be conducting this investigation would be a factor that I think would be significant in trying to draw that conclusion.
And let me just say one thing. If this was a criminal case, we're talking in terms of a criminal case, which it likely wouldn't be. It would be really an issue for Constitution. But given the evidence, lots of cases don't go to trial in a criminal case because the evidence is overwhelming or sufficient enough to have a conviction. So I doubt that this is a case that would really go to trial. When confronted with all the evidence, a reasonable defendant would likely take a plea.
You're saying someone presented with this evidence, like
it's pretty damning evidence.
Damning slam dunk evidence.
Yeah.
It is Wednesday, the 23rd of October of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh, such a lovely velvety hollandaise sauce on an equally lovely fluffy egg dish. Okay, well, look, if Trump were a citizen, he would be taking a plea right now because you're not going to let this go to trial. My God, there's too much evidence here. You're guilty of sin, and you cop a plea and hope that, the judge and others look favorably upon you in some way so that your sentence might be shortened somehow. But, according to a secret OLC memo, the President of the United States can abuse power and you can't do anything about it, even investigate it. Yes, we're going to be hearing about that hearing today. Well, I had to put myself in the bubble, so I don't know what the outcome or the early analyses. It is the audio is being broadcast. We didn't get permission. Well, we didn't ask, but I had to put myself in a bubble to be able once again to curate a show because the news just keeps coming. And you gotta just, shut it off a little bit. I leave it to others to deal with the breaking news. Tom Hartman will be up in just not too long from now. And he'll fill you in and we'll all catch up. But diplomat Bill Taylor's testimony yesterday. Let's put it in another frame. We don't even know about his testimony really yet, but we have his opening statement. That's what we have, and that's for the public and everyone to read. So when you hear from the traitor bots, the troll bots, the Trump bros and Trumpettes and the Cult 45 cultists, that it's all secret. It's a star chamber. Remind them of another thing. There were a bunch of Republicans hearing Bill Taylor's testimony as well. Okay? Let's be clear about that. And his opening statement is fairly damning. Wait until we get to hear the testimony. Wait. So the strategy, of course, is to malign and assassinate the character of Bill Taylor. Because, as Trump said, he doesn't care about anything, but he does care about corruption. Because he's totally corrupt, he has to care about corruption. He can't let any law enforcement officials enter into that paradigm, because the paradigm would collapse all around Duma Donnie. And he'll be carted off. One would expect. But we already know about the different kinds of justice here in America. One for them, one for us. Or should I say, none for them, a lot for us. So Bill Barr is implicated finally. John Mitchell this guy to prison right now. Please. Do we have to wait until he's out of office like John Mitchell was to finally put him in jail? Well, that can be arranged now, can it? Of course it can. So Bill Barr's up to his frog neck in it, too. That guy's Pepe the Frog. The resemblance is uncanny. Very much so. Sort of like how Rand Paul looks like the guy in Eraserhead. Same hairstyle. What's up with that? Well, that's off on a tangent. Let's get back to Bill Taylor because, the smoking gun didn't come in the form of a mushroom it came in the form of a diplomat's testimony. A career civil servant. So once again, Duma Donnie doesn't care about anything but corruption, so he's going to go after corruption. The Ukraine is corrupt because Ukraine was somehow implicated in, the Russians, I don't know, derpity derp derp. Hillary's server is over in the Ukraine. No, it's not. It's on display right next to the file cabinet that the Watergate burglars broke into because it's a museum piece now. It's right there. Missing server. So we got that going for us. So Duma Donnie is trying to fix the lie. He's got Bill Barr traveling around the world to fix the lie. And now it turns out Bill Barr did not investigate a criminal referral that the whistleblower gave him. And now it has all been revealed by Bill Taylor's testimony. And we're not even talking about his testimony. We're talking about his opening statement. Wait until we hear the testimony. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? A major Trump inaugural committee donor will plead guilty to hiding his work as a foreign agent to gain access to high-level government employees and officials in the Trump administration. The dark money-funded anti-abortion group Susan B. Anthony List is advising Trump on his 2020 campaign. And Trump tried to sabotage Obamacare, but instead, it is thriving. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Russia's Putin explained the results of his talks with Turkey's Erdogan to Syria's Assad. But nobody talked to America's Trump. Not one of them. And Egypt accepted an invitation to meet Ethiopia in the United States over their escalating dispute about damming the Blue Nile. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Link, and thank you, Kelly, for doing that. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is our link to our Patreon page, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Your generosity has allowed us to continue as Resistance Radio all these many 8 years and counting, and thank you very much for that. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that, and we thank Tom for doing so. I take care of @JusticePutnam. And I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then link that up on social media. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so @CookbookWest. And most importantly, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. Well, a bit of an update on some personal news here. I was so concerned about my dad yesterday. I'm sorry that it, intruded so much on the show. But, hey, we're a salon, and we like to sit down and get to know each other now, don't we? Some good news. The blood pressure medicine that they had on my father after some previous medical procedures, he had some issue with his blood pressure. They've taken him off of that because that particular compound would affect his sodium levels, and that's where a lot of this confusion and apparent deterioration was manifested from. And so they've given him another nighttime medicine to help him sleep a little bit better. Not so much a drug, because we don't want that in a almost 91-year-old guy. But really, the taking him off this particular blood pressure medicine has brought his sodium levels to a much more manageable level, and the confusion is gone, and he is all there once again. Oh, my God. So you prepare yourself for this. I mean, well, one should, and you get prepared, but it's still so very hard. It really is. And the mind is an odd thing. We all think. I'm one of those who fall prey to this attitude that somehow I will survive it. It won't happen to me. And you see all this evidence around you where it doesn't matter. I mean, my dad was doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. Well, he still does, but he says it takes him too long now. Because he used to finish that crossword puzzle in a couple of hours, at the most. He did that regularly. It's just, a brain exercise, a brain teaser, that sort of thing. And also, I marked his intellectual capacity, whatnot, by, his production of published work. And how diligently he always worked on his published work. And, I've noticed in the last 5 years that he just, maybe even more than the last 5 years, but he doesn't sit at his desk with his, and he uses 3x5 cards, by the way. He doesn't do the computer. All in boxes with 3x5 cards. That's where all of his notes and footnotes and a lot of his research is. And he writes the manuscripts in pencil. And then he has a couple of typists who discern. He's got great handwriting, so it's not difficult. But that's how his books were written. And when he wasn't sitting at his desk with his 3x5 cards, in meticulous order, by the way, a really complex Dewey Decimal type system that he had. When I saw that waning, well, he's getting old. His excuse was, I don't have the incentive to push it out all the time. So to see this recent deterioration just brought back memories of his grandma, my great-grandma, who was, I don't know, the stalwart of reason and compassion, I should say, as well. Grandma Jackson was a great gal. Lived to be 92, and she was driving a car up to a week before she passed. But that decline was rather swift. So it's going to happen to all of us. We prepare ourselves for our parents, and we don't prepare ourselves so much for our kids. I found that out. So it's just an odd bookend, losing my son, and then it looks like we're going to lose my dad, which is inevitable. I mean, the guy's almost 91. But I do appreciate everybody out there reaching out, and it put a scare in all of us, and it is so heartening to see that there's a rally there when really the rally was just blood chemistry not being in balance. Fancy that. Well, let's get on with this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. And it just so happens that anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press bring us this first offering. A prolific political fundraiser who donated large sums to Donald Trump's inaugural committee is expected to plead guilty to multiple federal charges. Imad Zuberi will admit in federal court in Los Angeles that he falsified records to conceal his work as a foreign agent while lobbying high-level U.S. government officials. He is also charged with tax evasion and making nearly $1 million in illegal campaign contributions. Oh, dare say where that money went. I wonder where. Zuberi did not immediately respond to messages from the Associated Press asking for comment. Yeah, he's probably talking with his lawyers. Court documents allege Zuberi used his contributions to obtain access to high-level government officials and attempted to persuade them to change existing United States policies and take other actions on behalf of and favorable to his clients. And who are his clients? Though his efforts generated marginal results, some officials were willing to adopt the positions that he advocated for, prosecutors said. I'm old enough to remember when the FBI ran this sting operation called Abscam. Yes, Ab for Arab, scam for getting public elected officials to change policies for money. I wonder who this guy is. Zuberi. Imad Zuberi. Is he affiliated with the Sauds by way of Gorky Park? Lisa Needham of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here on the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. One of the most well-known anti-abortion groups in the United States, the Susan B. Anthony List, is also the anti-abortion group with the most convoluted and secretive funding. It is also the group that is most tightly tied to Donald Trump. Founded in 1992 as an anti-abortion response to Emily's List, a group that aims to help elect pro-choice Democratic candidates to office, the Susan B. Anthony List was initially intended to support both Republican and Democratic female candidates and elect more women to office. However, the group lurched even further to the right in subsequent years and now exclusively supports Republicans while targeting anti-abortion Democrats. Its name is predicated on the idea that renowned feminist Susan B. Anthony opposed abortion, but even that is likely a myth. Today, the group is a juggernaut, raising millions each year to push their extreme agenda. And with Trump in office, it's found an administration highly sympathetic to their radical views. That's despite the fact that the group's head, Marjorie Dannenfelser, was a never-Trumper during the 2016 presidential campaign. Now, Dannenfelser holds press calls about her meetings with Trump, and Trump spoke at the group's 2018 gala. It's difficult to track down where all of the Susan B. Anthony List funding comes from, but one of the largest donors is the Center to Protect Patient Rights. That's a group linked to the Koch brothers, and it's a dark money sinkhole that got in trouble in California for failing to disclose over $15 million of donations in that state. And another major funder of the list is the Wellspring Committee, which also has ties to the Koch family. Wellspring is also a dark money front and coordinates with mega donors like Sheldon Adelson. Neither group is in any way explicitly connected to reproductive health rights. They just funnel conservative money to conservative groups. At its root, the Susan B. Anthony List resents the triumph of money over truth. It's founded on a lie, but it pushes absurd lies about abortion, and it also obscures its funding. Anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Consumers will have more health insurance choices next year under the Obama-era health care law, and premiums will dip slightly for many consumers, the Trump administration announced. But that may be short-lived. The administration is simultaneously asking a federal appeals court in New Orleans to overturn the entire ACA as unconstitutional, an overhang of uncertainty that looms over the entire program. For now, the Department of Health and Human Services is touting a second consecutive year of positive-sounding numbers. An additional 20 insurers will participate for 2020, expanding consumer choice in many states. Nearly 70% of customers will have 3 or more insurers from which to pick a plan. About 10 million people are covered through the health law's insurance markets, which offer taxpayer-subsidized private plans for people who are not covered on the job. Former President Barack Obama's namesake law will be 10 years old in 2020. How time flies. Premiums for a hypothetical 27-year-old choosing a standard plan will decline 4% on average next year. And about a dozen states run their own sign-up websites, but most rely on healthcare.gov, which is where these numbers are coming from. A low-cost mid-range plan for that hypothetical 27-year-old will charge monthly premiums of $374 next year. The law's income-based subsidies can drop that to around $50. However, people who don't qualify for income-based assistance must pay full price, and that's before any deductibles and copays. Unsubsidized customers may just decide to go in uninsured, particularly if they're healthy, and that's how the whole plan collapses, isn't it? Feature, not a bug. Experts say factors that insurers that have stuck with the program have learned over time how to operate profitably. The Trump administration also disclosed that it had made some minor changes in how it reports data about the program. While those tweaks appear to be in the weeds, they're likely to get close attention from Democrats who accuse Trump of sabotage of the health law. I would think it's more than just an accusation, but that's because I'm a romantic. Well, we better get on with our break. And when we come back from that break, we're going to go through weather from around the world. And then we're going to finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Tropey Dearest. So, in Judy, director Rupert Gould has gotten together with screenwriter Tom Edge and, bound to win some award for her performance, Renee Zellweger, and they have all made an adaptation of Peter Quilter's much-lauded musical drama, End of the Rainbow. And I'm shocked that Judy is a British film based on a British play by a British playwright because it seems tailor-made for Hollywood's sensibilities. Let me tell you. Judy focuses on Judy Garland right before her death, when years of professional instability have made one of the screen's biggest stars almost unhireable. So Judy must leave her children to take a cabaret engagement in London so she can make enough money to take care of said children. And so the kernel of this movie is the story that we've been fed over and over and over and over again, the family in jeopardy. And Quilter could have centered his play on something else. It could have been about an aged performer who still has talent but finds her material and history not connecting with a new younger audience. It could have been about how Garland drew people to her who profited off her talent while they drained her. It could have been a study of the cost of the great urge that drives a great performer to perform. It could have been about the relationship between artist and audience, which at one moment can be loving and inspirational, and then the next moment can be dismissive and abusive. It could have been about the construction of a gay male icon. It could have been about how the tragedy of someone who was thrown into an unrelentingly public life at an early age suffered greatly for failing to make a private life for herself. Judy touches on all these aspects of Garland's life, but at its core is one of the few roles where it's safe for women to be extraordinary. Supermom fighting for her children. And like I said, everybody does it well. I just wish they'd been as ambitious about their chosen theme as they were in executing the theme they chose. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60 Second Science. I'm Suzanne Bard. The Sahara Desert, where daytime temperatures can reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Not many organisms can survive in this harsh environment, but an insect called the Saharan silver ant thrives. They scurry out onto the sand from their protected nests to gather up the carcasses of less fortunate insects that have died from the heat.
The hotter the day, the more insect bodies they will find, the more food they have.
Sarah Pfeffer, an animal behaviorist at Ulm University in Germany. She says that to avoid sinking into the Saharan sand dunes, where they could meet the same fate as their lunch, silver ants have to be fast. To document just how quickly the ants move, Pfeffer and her colleagues set up high-speed cameras above a channel between the entrance to the hungry ant's nest and a food source. The researchers recorded top speeds approaching 35 inches per second.
But if you really look how big the animals are and you calculate the body length per second, you come up with a walking speed that is an astonishing 108 body lengths per second.
That figure makes them the fastest known ant on the planet. By comparison, cheetahs top out at about 16 body lengths per second. The videos revealed how the ants achieve such prodigious speeds. As they accelerate, their leg movements become synchronized. They increase their stride length by bringing all 6 feet off the sand at once, which Pfeffer describes as a gallop.
Really all legs are lifted from the ground. They are in air. but it's not jumping. It's a very smooth run that they have.
Pfeffer says they're thus faster than a closely related ant species called Cataglyphus fortis, which has longer legs but a less impressive airborne phase. That ant only reaches about 24 inches per second, or 2/3 of the silver ant's max. The study appears in the Journal of Experimental Biology. The Saharan silver ant's breakneck speeds may be impressive, but two insects are even faster: the California coastal mite and the Australian tiger beetle, both of which also thrive at near-lethal temperatures. Seems that, to beat the heat, it pays to be fleet. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Suzanne Bard.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the 3rd trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith,
and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1989. At 1:05 in the afternoon, a massive explosion rocked the town of Pasadena, Texas, near Houston. The explosion was so large it registered a 3.5 on the Richter scale. The disaster took place at the Phillips Petroleum Company's Houston Chemical Complex. The Pasadena facility produces plastics. The fire started when highly flammable gas was released from an improperly connected valve. 23 workers were killed. More than 300 more were injured. The Houston Chronicle described the devastating impact of the explosion, writing, "Entire buildings vanished as a huge black smoke plume billowed skyward in an almost apocalyptic vision. Homes as far as 8 miles away were damaged." After the explosion, the company rebuilt its facilities. A year after the disaster, Tom Gentry, president of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Local 4-227, thought the company could do more to improve workplace safety. He told a Chronicle reporter, "The company still uses outside contractors with less safety training, and workers become tired because of bare-bones staffing." At the time of the explosion, there were 905 company workers and an additional 600 contracted employees who worked at the facilities. OSHA found multiple safety violations. The company eventually came to an agreement with OSHA and paid a $4 million fine. In 1999, another explosion killed 2 workers at the Pasadena facility. The next year, yet another explosion killed 1 worker and injured 71. The company continued to hire contracted employees. After the third explosion in 11 years, Joe Campbell, secretary-treasurer of the paper Allied Industrial, Chemical, and Energy Workers International, said the company continued to hire contractors who have little or no experience working in a volatile workplace.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019. That's a day that'll likely go down in history as the day that everything changed in the United States. Our top diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, told members of Congress Tuesday that the president, Donald Trump, directed officials to tie foreign aid to Ukraine to demands that the country open an investigation into the Biden family and the 2016 election, seriously contradicting Trump's repeated denials of a quid pro quo. Taylor said that it was, quote, becoming clear to him as early as July that nearly $400 million of military aid was being withheld on the condition that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky commit to investigating the Burisma Energy Company, on whose board Hunter Biden sat, as well as a conspiracy theory about alleged Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election. Taylor said that European Union Ambassador Gordon Sondland told him in September that everything, meaning both military aid and a meeting with Trump in Washington, was dependent on Zelensky making a public statement committing to order the investigations. The White House issued a statement in response to the testimony, reading in part, quote, "President Trump has done nothing wrong. This is a coordinated smear campaign from far-left lawmakers and radical unelected bureaucrats waging war on the Constitution. There was no quid pro quo," end quote. So, of course, on Tuesday, Trump created a new distraction. He compared the inquiry to, quote, "a lynching" on Twitter. The backlash was immediate, but as always, a few feckless Republicans astonishingly had his back, including Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, this is a lynching in every sense. This is un-American. I've never seen a situation in my lifetime as a lawyer where somebody's accused of a major misconduct who cannot confront the accuser, call witnesses on her behalf, and have the discussion in the light of the day so the public can judge.
That, by the way, is a false narrative. As has been explained by legal experts left and right, these depositions behind closed doors are analogous to grand jury testimony. After the depositions come the actual hearings, which will be open to the public, as they should be. This is just getting started. And it continues Wednesday in a busy day on Capitol Hill, beginning with Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs, Laura Cooper, testifying before the 3 House committees investigating the impeachment inquiry. Over at the House Financial Services Committee, Facebook chairman and CEO Mark Zuckerberg is in the hot seat, testifying about the Facebook-created cryptocurrency network called Libra that they announced in June. I'm sure there will be some other questions asked of the Facebook chief as well. At the same time, oral arguments are scheduled in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. This after Trump's attorneys filed an appeal hoping to prevent the Manhattan District Attorney's Office from enforcing a subpoena demanding the president's tax returns. But there's more at stake in this case as well. Rachel Maddow explains.
This ruling against Trump that is being appealed not only smacks down the president for this incredible executive overreach in terms of what he says he can get away with, it also basically dismantles the internal memos at the Justice Department that say that a president can't be indicted. These are the same memos that supposedly constrained Robert Mueller from recommending any charges against President Trump in his report, right? It's the DOJ policy that says a president can't be charged. Well, the judge in this case that smacked down Trump for trying to say that he is immune from any investigation also says those Justice Department memos shouldn't be seen as having, quote, substantial legal force. It says those memos, quote, do not constitute authoritative judicial interpretation of the Constitution concerning these issues. The ruling says those DOJ memos are, quote, flawed by ambiguities, if not outright conflicts. The ruling says that, in short, quote, the court rejects the Justice Department memos' position, by which the justice means specifically that this ruling rejects the position that a president can't be criminally charged while in office. That whole idea that we have that a president can't be indicted, that comes from those DOJ memos. Part of this ruling that is being appealed is a ruling that says actually those DOJ memos shouldn't be enforced here. There shouldn't be a rule that says the president can't be indicted. That's crazy.
But wait, there's more. Rudy Giuliani's associates, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, are also expected in court Wednesday for an arraignment on campaign finance-related charges. Now, think back to September 8th, 2018. That's when an anonymous op-ed appeared in the New York Times from someone who purported to be a Trump aide working inside the White House, writing ostensibly to assure us that he or she is one of a number of, quote, resistors inside the administration, promising to help protect us against a rogue, corrupt, Trumpian White House. Well, that same anonymous Trump aide has now written a tell-all book about his or her time in the White House. It's going to come out November 19th, less than a month away. A few thoughts, though. If this person alleges that they witnessed illegal behavior and is declining to go to authorities, isn't that a crime? And this book would have a lot more relevance if this person would only identify his or herself. Just saying. Wednesday marks the 5th day of a massive teacher strike in Chicago that's affecting around 300,000 students. The Chicago Teachers Union and city officials are deadlocked and blaming each other for the strike. On one side, the union has asked for smaller class sizes, more support staff, and higher raises for all educators. In response, the city has offered some concessions, but said it can't afford to fulfill all the union's demands. Though 25,000 educators are involved in the strike, public school buildings remained open and staffed by non-union workers. The Chicago Transit Authority is also giving free rides to students during the day, and community centers, museums, and cultural centers are offering educational programs as a school day substitute. Over in Syria, things are as horrific as you'd imagine. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkish President Recep Erdogan met Tuesday to broker a deal regarding Syria's civil war. Under the agreement, there will be a roughly 18-mile safe zone on the border between Turkey and northern Syria. Kurdish forces will be forced to stay south of it, with the Russian military police and Turkish military patrolling the line. Not included in this negotiation is the United States. This whole incident made it clear that Turkey and Russia are not interested in including the U.S. in plans regarding Syria's future. Furthermore, after the recent withdrawal of U.S. troops from the area signaled what many called a betrayal of their Kurdish allies, it appears that Russia will be the Kurds' new powerful protector in the region. Over in the UK, members of Parliament voted Tuesday to reject Prime Minister Boris Johnson's timetable to push legislation through Parliament in time to take the UK out of the European Union by the deadline of October 31st. And finally, there's one more big trial to keep an eye out on this week. Energy giant ExxonMobil is on trial for allegedly misleading investors about the potential impact of climate change regulations on its operations. The New York Attorney General brought the suit against the company and claims the alleged fraud may have cost investors $1.6 billion. The suit alleges ExxonMobil calculated the cost of regulations that would impact demand for oil and gas, like fuel economy rules and alternative energy subsidies. It then allegedly fudged the figures to misrepresent how carbon regulation would affect investors. Former U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was the CEO of ExxonMobil during the years in question and is expected to testify during the trial. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and The Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener-supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Forecast to be a bit warmer than yesterday. We should be in, the low to mid-70s. Mostly cloudy conditions will prevail this morning with sunny skies in the afternoon. Winds have remained light and variable and will remain so overnight and tomorrow. Overnight lows in the upper 40s to low 50s. Tomorrow we're expecting a high in the mid to upper 70s. Overnight lows should be in the upper 40s and low 50s for the next foreseeable nights. Ragweed pollen is rated at moderate. The air quality index is 35 parts per million, which is supposed to be good, and the daytime UV index is moderate at 3. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.33 inches. Visibility is down to 5 miles, and relative humidity locally is at 86%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 60 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 60 degrees with a heavy rain shower. Rome is 80 degrees and sunny with a heat advisory. Fancy that. Kiev is 60 degrees and fair. Kabul is 57 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 75 and fair. Tokyo is 66 degrees and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 63 degrees and they are clear. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and fair. And New York is 62 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Well, in another example of the waning United States influence on world affairs, Russian President Vladimir Putin has explained to Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad by phone the results of his talks with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Putin, after lengthy talks with Erdogan, highlighted in the phone call with Assad that restoring Syria's territorial integrity was the main task. They shall clear, they shall cleanse, they shall use a final solution to get rid of all those Kurds and get them away. Assad thanked Putin and expressed his full support for the results of the work, as well as the readiness of the Syrian border guards together with the Russian military police to reach the Syrian-Turkish border and finish the work with a final solution.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
And even more anonymous worker bees and Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Egypt said it had accepted a U.S. invitation to a meeting of foreign ministers over a project for a giant hydropower dam on Ethiopia's Blue Nile that is causing an escalating spat between the two African countries. A spat, and it's escalating. What is escalated past a spat? Well, let's read on. The meeting of foreign ministers of Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan, the three nations directly affected by the project, will be held in Washington. Egypt's foreign ministry said without stating a date, or if the other nations had agreed. Egypt has received an invitation for the U.S. administration, the ministry said in a statement, adding, an invitation that Egypt immediately accepted. Egypt is worried that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, otherwise known as GERD, under construction near Ethiopia's border with Sudan, will restrict supplies of already scarce Nile waters, on which it is almost entirely dependent. After years of three-way talks with Ethiopia and Sudan, it says it has exhausted efforts to reach a pact on conditions for operating the dam and filling the reservoir behind. Ethiopia says the dam is crucial to its economic development and has denied that the talks between the three are stalled, accusing Egypt of trying to sidestep the process. And why not do it by going straight to Dumandani? In this reporter's opinion, Ethiopia will not be stopped from building the dam, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said on Tuesday. Abiy, who won the Nobel Prize this month for his peacemaking efforts with longtime enemy Eritrea, also raised the prospect of conflict over the dam, saying, if we are going to war, we can deploy many millions, but war is not a solution. Egypt criticized the comments as unacceptable. Well, I think that if you pay Dumandani a sort of, I don't know, what would you call it, a consultation fee, I'm sure that everything can be worked out beautifully, perfectly. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.